Wayseeker by Justina Ireland is the new Star Wars book coming out on May 6th. I got to read it early, so as usual, here is my spoiler-free review. The story is centered around Vernestra Rwoh and Indara from the Acolyte series. Here we learn about an adventure the two Jedi shared about 20 years earlier. But of course, fans of the High Republic books and comics have been very familiar with Vernestra because she is one of the central characters of that story back when she was a teenager. And in my opinion, Wayseeker leans way more into the High Republic publishing initiative than the Acolyte, which makes sense with Justina Ireland as the author. I'm just saying, if you're going into this book expecting big revelations about Vernestra and her former Padawan, the Stranger, that's not really what this book is about. There are some interesting details to be learned about all that, but nothing super concrete. To me, Wayseeker seems more like an epilogue to the High Republic books than it does a prequel to the Acolyte, which has its own pros and cons. As a big fan of the publishing initiative, I think this is a great sign that we can tell more stories about all the characters that survive Phase 3, and it still feels perfectly natural. But in this moment, I think it's just an odd time to put this book out. The final book of the initiative, Trials of the Jedi, doesn't come out for 2 more months. Things are tense, lives hang in the balance, and Wayseeker gave away more details than I would have personally liked. Nothing too major, but I do now know some names of characters who survived the final book. I say that because if you're like me and you've been reading the High Republic for 4 years, you might consider saving Wayseeker until after Trials of the Jedi. I'm usually very adamant about watching and reading and experiencing stories in release order, but this is definitely a time where I think the flow works better treating Wayseeker as an extended epilogue. I'm really confused about why they chose to release it so close to the end of the High Republic instead of waiting for it to wrap up. It's a little jarring to read about younger Vernestra in Tears of the Nameless, then jump ahead more than a century to read about her here, and then we're gonna jump backwards again, but that's more of a business complaint and not a creative one, and it's from the perspective of someone who reads all of the books, which I know is not the normal experience to have, so let me focus up. Judging Wayseeker as a standalone book and story, it was fine. Not bad, but not amazing either. It's definitely interesting. It's written half in first person and half in third person, which I don't think I've ever experienced before. All of Vernestra's chapters are from her perspective, and then any of Indara's chapters are third person. And I think I get why. Vernestra is a much older Jedi Master. She knows who she is, and she's sure of herself, and we get that from her chapters. Indara, at this point, is freshly knighted and feeling a lot of insecurities. I enjoyed her character quite a bit, which is great, since we didn't get to know her that well in The Acolyte. The main thread of the story felt right for this time period, because it doesn't make sense to have galactic-scale wars or super weapons popping up, but what Vernestra and Indara have to deal with has pretty serious consequences for the Jedi Order, and it brings back a seemingly dropped plot point from the High Republic books that I was pleased to see revisited. The villains were decent. They grew on me more as the book went on, but I definitely wished we had spent more time with them, and there is some exploration into corrupt senators and politicians and officials that certainly felt timely, but are also relevant to the Jedi Order as they become increasingly intertwined with the Republic. But I never felt like the Jedi characters were thrown into anything they couldn't handle, which obviously I knew both of them would survive because they're in the Acolyte, but I never felt like the villains had the upper hand, or like they were a serious threat to our heroes. Villains aside, the adventure itself was pretty good. I say all the time that I prefer my Star Wars books to be expansive, with lots of characters and planet hopping. There aren't a lot of characters in Wayseeker, but there are so many locations. Some of them are familiar, but a lot of them are new, and I really liked the world building and the concepts that got thrown around. New planets, new organizations, new political stuff. There's a surprising amount of expansion on different kinds of spice, which I thought was really fun. I liked the creativity in this book quite a bit. All in all, Wayseeker was fine. It didn't blow me away, but it was a fast read that kept me engaged. If you're a High Republic fan and you're dreading the end of the initiative, my recommendation would be to save Wayseeker as an extra little treat at the end. If you're an Acolyte fan looking for more exploration into the era, I think this could be a nice way to ease you into some of the characters and concepts from the books and comics. But that's it for my review. If you want to check out Wayseeker for free, you can on Audible. Just click on the link in the description or go to audibletrial.com/Star Wars Explained. There you can sign up for a 1-month trial that comes with a free credit you can use on Wayseeker or on any other Star Wars book, or get any book you want. The point is, you'll get a free audiobook and you'll be supporting the channel when you do. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on our socials, and consider checking out our Patreon page where we're going to have a book club discussion of Wayseeker in a few weeks. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.